Happy to welcome Gavin Johnston to our FM Spotlight series focusing on careers in FM. Gavin is a principal consultant at consultancy business Mott MacDonald. Gavin spent many years in the FM market as a contracts manager on hard and soft services contracts for MCO Facility Services and Mighty, working on lots of PFI schools contracts, both for a local authority and FM service providers before moving into your current role with consultancy business Mott MacDonald, Gavin. Welcome, really delighted that you've been able to join me today. So I'd love you to share your career journey really into FM, Gavin, and a little bit about, how you got into FM, how did that come about in the first place, and then how you've moved from where you started to where you've got to now.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Michelle. Yeah, I think my route into FM was probably not the traditional way that people would get into FM, but nowadays
falling into it.
Yeah, it was literally falling into it. So what happened back in the day is that my father and I had a small business, and we were doing some work for Nissan back in the day, just when they were just started up in Washington.
Okay.
In the Northeast, back in the 80s. And we used to do some odd jobs for them. We used to take some rubbish away and a bit of litter picking and stuff. It all started from there, really. And it wasn't called FM in them days. And I think building maintenance was probably its title back in the day. So facilities management wasn't a buzzword back in those days. And we grew the business, we increased the staff, and we ended up doing maintenance on the building. So we had joiners, we had plumbers, we had litter pickers, we had gardeners. Basically, we maintained the site. We did everything except work on the line, which Nissan probably did themselves.
Yeah.
So it sort of grew from there. We worked well for about 16 years. And then as facilities management started becoming a buzzword, the contract was won by MCO, MCO Drinking School back in those days. And I was to be transferred across to MCO. And that was probably my first insight into a true facilities management organisation. Okay. And I did learn a lot from them, and it's probably set us on the road to where I am now. Subsequently, they lost the contract 2 or 3 years later, and Mighty took over. Mm-hmm. And I worked for Mighty for about a year before I decided to go and work in local authority.
Okay.
So local authority were a little bit behind the private sector in those days, probably nowadays as well. No disrespect to public sector colleagues. So I started working for Northumberland County Council as a facilities manager, doing predominantly soft services on schools. And it's a vast district, Northumberland County, and it was hard work because just the sheer size of the county makes it difficult to get around all of the premises that they've got.
Yes.
So following that, I was headhunted, I suppose you could say, from Mott MacDonald, who needed somebody with local authority knowledge and soft FM experience, which I did have. So that started my journey with Mott MacDonald back in 2007.
So seeing quite a lot from different angles, I suppose, different types of contracts with the Nissan contract through to schools and working for the local authority as well as service providers, and then into consultancy business.
Yeah, I think I had to grow up quite quickly actually, because obviously no disrespect to the business that my father and I had at Nissan, we were as professional in ourselves, but we weren't a professional organisation. And then the local MCO Drinking School and Mighty were a little bit more professional. And then you come into the corporate world of Mott MacDonald, and it's a bit of a culture shock.
Yes, yeah.
But at the same time, a lot of our clients back in those days were local authorities, so I had lots of empathy with the people working within FM in the local authorities. So it was what I had done at Northumberland County Council was good experience for us, and it provided that empathy towards them.
Yes. So, I mean, FM's known well, isn't it, for its dynamic and diverse nature? And obviously, you've had some of that in the contracts and projects you've worked on. Which would you say you most enjoyed, if you could pinpoint any of those, and how would you say they've impacted the organisations that you've worked for and maybe the FM industry as a whole?
I think the biggest impact that the industry had on me was probably the PFI market in the late 90s, early 2000s. And whether you love or hate PFI, they had a massive impact on the industry. And I think that the variety that brought, whether you were working on BSF schools or whether you were working on NHS, PFI or wherever, the diversity was huge, and the contracts were different. And I think that helping a local authority or helping schools, because they became very personal, because you used to meet up with head teachers and governors of schools and explain to them what was going to happen, and then 3 or 4 years down the lane you would hand over a new school, and I think that had a huge impact.
How did you prepare for that? Was it a lot of learning on the job? Was there specific training? Because you've come out of that family business into a different world, and then this huge world of PFI, having to deal with lots of different stakeholders.
I think the biggest thing that I had to do, and I never had any formal qualifications in facilities management prior to working for Mott MacDonald. But what I did do was I'd done a degree at Sheffield Hallam University, who are pretty good at FM qualifications. And I got a degree in facilities management.
Okay. And
most of the things I learned on the degree I have used, but a lot of it was on the job, particularly in PFI. You have to learn and adapt quickly, and you have to show to clients that you know what you're talking about. So it was a lot of reading back in the early PFIs until you got the knowledge and the experience. But doing the degree, and it was quite late in my life to do a degree, was probably the most beneficial.
Good. And that probably leads us nicely on to talking about skills and competencies, actually. And, what sort of skills you think are essential for success in the FM field, and how have you developed those as you've gone through your career, as well as the degree that you've mentioned, other ways that you might have developed those?
Yeah, I think in facilities management, it's all about relationships with your client, which is key, because you have to win the client over, and you'll not always win the client over, but if you have their trust, then that goes a long, long way. So I think you have to be a people person.
Yes.
And you have to show empathy, but you also have to show knowledge, and you have to be strong sometimes, because clients will try and walk all over you. But if you can explain yourself in a truthful manner, they'll normally come around. I think common sense, because a lot of problems that you get in facilities management, if they're not a technical problem, then it's a practical problem. So a lot of common sense needs to be used in facilities management to solve problems.
Yeah. And I mean, the relationship thing's just huge, isn't it? I think
Massive.
that's come up on every interview, you know, that I've done, and every conversation that I have in the market. It's all about that, and particularly now with PFI and all the handback process happening, you know, that's a huge thing, isn't it? And for people that don't really know the world of FM, and newer people looking to come into that, you know, that's a good message, isn't it? It's a big market. However, I think it's easy to build relationships and to find people that will help and are willing to have a conversation. Have you found that as you've moved through the different organisations?
Yeah, I think you have to earn trust both with clients and with your staff. And once you've earned that trust, then people are more receptive to you.
Yes.
And I think it goes a big way in solving a lot of problems with your clients and with your staff internally.
And I'd be interested in, you know, what advice you might give to any aspiring FM professionals, people that are looking to come into the sector, or, you know, have an interest but don't fully know about it. Is there any advice you would give?
There's 2 or 3 things that I would say is that you need to achieve the best qualification that you possibly can. I'm not saying everybody has to go and do a degree or a master's or anything like that, but achieve the highest qualification that you can in facilities management. So when you talk to people, they think, well, this guy knows, or this lady knows what they're talking about, and that gives them confidence, and that's how you'll earn respect. I think nowadays as well, a digital knowledge and digital know-how, because I think digitalization is going to be huge in the FM industry then over the next few years. I mean, I know we're already there, but we're not where we should be, and there's a lot more things that we can use to get us ahead of the market. The other thing I would probably say is learn from your peers and people above you, because life in general is all about learning from your mistakes, and facilities management is no different. And people around you and above you have made the same mistakes that you have, so it's learning from their mistakes and moving on. And I think finally, the last thing I would say about people aspiring to come into FM is probably be truthful. Always be truthful, because you always get found out if you're not truthful. And I think people, clients and colleagues will respect you a lot more if you just tell the truth.
Yeah. And following on from that, Gavin, I guess, what would you say we can do as an industry to attract people into the sector a little bit more? Because we all talk about it really being the best kept secret, don't we? And it really touches everything on a daily basis and all aspects of life, you know, depending on whether you're thinking about healthcare or education or defence or, you know, whatever it is. But I think perhaps, you know, pushing more case studies out there of the breadth of opportunities. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think when you ask most people what do they know what facilities management is, they'll probably say, no, I don't, or they'll try and make it up. And if you explain that it's the maintenance of the building and the cleaning and the catering, and they go, oh, right, that's facilities management. So I think it's an awareness. I know people like yourself are trying to, particularly on LinkedIn, are trying to make people aware of the FM industry, and it's a sector that most organizations cannot do without. In fact, every organization cannot do without it. And in the NHS, and I'm speaking for estates and facilities colleagues, that the clinical staff and consultants and doctors will get all of the praise, truly, so they should. But But without the estates and facilities guys, the FM guys in the NHS, the clinical staff, the doctors and the nurses and the consultants wouldn't be able to operate.
Yes, absolutely. And it's making such an impact, isn't it?
Yeah. Facilities management has a huge impact on any industry.
I think, sharing some of the other things for young people that are looking to come through around, sustainability and ESG and social value and things, of purpose that are interesting to young people as well. There's so much on that side as well, isn't there, that perhaps we're not sharing those stories as much as we could be.
Yeah, social value in particular, because the facilities management sector do a huge amount of work behind the scenes, particularly on social value, but it doesn't get recognised. A lot of people are very sceptical about it, particularly in the private industry, FM giving something back, giving something to the community. Even if the FM company don't do it for recognition, they just do it.
Yes, yeah.
And I think we have to shout about it from the rooftops.
Yeah, I agree. And any final takeaways, Gavin, then, in terms of the career that you've had, that maybe 3 things that you could tell us that you love about facilities management and why you would encourage other people to get involved?
I think the diversity is really good. It's interesting, and every day is different.
Mm-hmm.
In most cases, you get different problems every day that need solving, and that's something that I enjoy. And what I also enjoy is seeing people smile when they get a new building or a refurbished ward or whatever. It's making people happy.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time, Gavin. I've really enjoyed listening to your career journey.